Our guest today is Phil Dunn, a director, writer, poet, and owner of Authentive, a production company based in Brixton, South London. Now, through Authentive, he learned on the job, making hundreds of films for clients in the corporate, charity, fashion, and music sectors. And his first short film, Box Office Smash, marked a jumping off point in his career, garnering official selections at top international film festivals, winning 14 awards and critical acclaim. Then his next short film, About, continued this momentum, winning the same number of awards and obtaining equally impressive reviews, propelling him further into the world of cinema. His newest short film, The Stupid Boy, is powerful, it's moving, it reaches down into your heart so deep that it will leave an impression on you like no other film. And the Stupid Boy short film is Oscar qualified to be considered for a 2024 Academy Award, and rightly so. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the cinematic creator of The Stupid Boy, writer, director, Phil Dunn, to the show. Welcome, Phil.
Hi, Ward. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you to have me on.
Well, I'm pretty excited about this new short film, The Stupid Boy. But I've got to ask you something. How did you go from medicine to theology to filmmaking?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's definitely one that I've looking back on it, you can maybe make more sense of it than you can at the time. I think a lot of my family might have been looking on, thinking, "What on earth is Phil up to?" But yeah, I studied medicine first in London, and that was really because my father was a doctor, and I just thought it's such a noble profession. You could save lives. What better could you do in the world? But I soon realized that it wasn't really for me, and I think that's the important thing, is to find where you fit and what's right for you. So I looked at theology. I've always thought a lot and very deeply about a lot of things, and theology sort of matched up with that, and understanding what makes people tick. And as I studied that, I found out, really it's about the stories throughout history, throughout the millennia, that have inspired and connected with human beings, for better or for worse, but that have found their way into the human story, and still are around today, even thousands of years later. So it was during that time I started playing with film, and that whole thing about story and all the different techniques that they use in the Bible to tell a story, that and in other religious texts as well. I began to want to tell my own stories too, and began to try and do that through film.
Well,
So for my
let's.
dissertation, I made a film
Oh, really? So, wow. What in theology school?
in theology. Yeah, they wanted an essay of 12,000 words, but they said, "Be creative, please. We're so bored of having to read all these things." So I thought, okay, I'll hand in a DVD. It was at the time, of a half-hour short film, and that's what sold me on the whole filmmaking thing. Everything from writing all the way through to the final edit and showing it in a cinema at my university. It just set my heart alight. So I kind of had the bug from then on.
Well, I love that. I mean, was there any particular films that you have seen prior to that that kind of planted that seed?
Oh, I mean, so many. I remember, one of the first films, two films that jump to mind immediately. One is Chariots of Fire. I think if you were a young English kid growing up back then, that was such a powerful and amazing film. And I remember, that moment where Eric Liddell falls to the ground and everyone runs past him, and he gets up and somehow, still wins the race. That kind of thing. That ability for film to really inspire you and to give you a story that stays with you. I mean, I've thought of that so many times throughout life, where things go wrong and you think, and it's that whole thing. It's not, the falling down, it's the getting up, it's getting back, going for it again. So yeah, I think it's films like that really stuck with me. Yeah, another one would be Gandhi. I watched that when I was young, and I remember that just leaving such a huge impression on me. This amazing man and his life, and um, how would I have really got into that story any other way? I'm not sure I would have sat down and read a book about his life, but
You,
it touched me.
you bring up two films that this younger generation have not seen, and most
Yeah.
of them have probably have never heard of either film. But when I talk to filmmakers, we bring up things like Jaws or The Godfather,
Yeah,
but Chariots of Fire, that is true cinematic art. And it's not just
yeah,
the storytelling, it's the music score, it's just the cinematography, the way that it's done. It's pure film art. And
yeah,
Gandhi, well, that's just a biopic that is just that everyone needs to see. But both
100%.
both films have very powerful meanings. Did you pull a little bit from either one of those in making The Stupid Boy?
Oh wow. Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, I would say for Gandhi particularly, one of the sort of central themes in The Stupid Boy really is this idea, particularly for the last scene, the final scene. No spoilers, but there one of the reasons, one of the sort of key inspirations for that was this idea of non-violence. And I remember studying that when I was studying theology. I remember but that originally came from watching Gandhi, that film where you saw these Indians standing in front of their oppressors and walking towards them, but without any act of violence. They weren't trying to, and being beaten down by police with sticks and all sorts, but they just got up and kept coming. And then I subsequently read about that with Martin Luther King as well. There's something about that just completely, it's so from another world almost, completely stuck with me. And that was, I think that was one of the main reasons why I had this idea for this film, was wrestling with that. I like that concept of like not being violent but still somehow standing up uh to violence and to oppression and to evil, but without violence. It's a fascinating idea.
The picture that enters my mind as you're saying all of that is the famous photograph of Tiananmen Square
Yes,
with the
yes,
one person standing there in front of a tank.
yeah,
That
yeah.
to me exemplifies The Stupid Boy.
Oh, thank you. Wow,
And
that's
because, ladies and gentlemen, this film, The Stupid Boy, as I said before, it's powerfully moving. So, Phil, for the audience out there, explain what The Stupid Boy is about without giving the spoiler.
yeah. So Stupid Boy, it's about a neurodivergent teenager who's growing up in a London where there's been a spate of white supremacist suicide bombings. And he, like many people, he's growing up in it's a fearful place. There's sort of terror on every corner, as it were. And but he sees things differently because of his neurodivergence. And at the same time, we follow this other character, Stephen, who is a broken man in sort of late 30s, who has had a pretty tough experience of life, experienced abuse when he was younger, and is being groomed by this Christian white supremacist group. And yeah, essentially these two parallel narratives finally converge in our last scene.
Yeah. Now, what inspired you to write this story? I mean, you studied theology. I picked that up a bit in the film.
Yeah.
Uh, in what ways did it help you to write and direct it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, theology is a fascinating, I've never been that excited by religion, but I've always found human beings really exciting and interesting. I'm fascinated. I've always been a people watcher ever since I was a kid. I was always that kid just staring rudely at the at people at the other table. And yeah, I think, for me, it was a real, like, looking into kind of what makes people tick, what is under the surface, seeing beyond the kind of religious side of things. I think particularly with when it comes to terrorism and religious extremism, it's very easy to go, well, it's because of their religion that they're doing that. And my one of my goals in this film was to see past that to the human being. That why does one of the things I want to get my head around was why would anyone want to strap a bomb to themselves and then try and blow themselves up and other people with them? Like, what leads to that point? And obviously there's lots of different ways that someone could get there, and none of them are nice, but to
No,
try
not
and
at
get
all.
some humanity of it. Yeah,
Yeah, and what I loved was the double perspective of this film. There are two sides to all worldviews. I mean, especially
Yeah.
what we're seeing happening in Israel.
Yeah.
But people with very strong and passionate beliefs, they
Yeah.
can convince themselves that they're right. I mean,
Yeah.
like the character Stephen in the film.
Yeah.
And not only did you nail that character, I thought naming him Stephen was a very good choice biblically. Biblically. Was that
Yes.
done on purpose?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I think the more I think what I love about cinema, and this is, it's so nice that you talked about it as being a cinematic film. Um, what I love about cinema is that if it's such a beautiful medium, because absolutely every piece of it can mean something if you let it, and you can work with every part of it to speak something to the viewer, whether they realize it or not. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, obviously, but it can be incredibly powerful. So, the color that someone is wearing, or the fact that they are drinking a cup of coffee, or a whiskey instead of, that will tell you something about that character immediately. And yeah, that name was definitely, Stephen in the Bible is, he was the first martyr in the New Testament. So um, it led quite nicely to the way the guy who's grooming Stephen, it sort of helped confirm what he was thinking.
Well, when the gentleman in the white supremacist group asked him, "Well, what's
Mm.
your name?" And the
Yeah.
moment he said Stephen, and I went, "Oh, that's
Oh.
good." And then the other character looked at him, and he was thinking the exact same thing, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is great." But in a way, that I guess that leader of the white supremacist group, he used that to feed more of his own belief into
Yeah.
the Stephen character. He basically used it as a manipulative tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think, again, from my studies of religion, unfortunately, that is how religion has been used so much throughout history. It's been used to control people, and it's been used to manipulate people into doing, the religious authorities, or whoever sets themselves up as an authority, to do their bidding. And it actually becomes very little to do with God at all. And that's where, as far as what I understand is God, which is God is really, people talk about the universe, it's talk about love, and that's what this film says in it. It's very clearly like God is love. Like, if we can't agree on anything else, and even the word God is a difficult one to deal with. Love, we all agree about, is it's important. It's important. It's powerful, and we all want more of it in the world. So let's unite around that.
Well, yeah, because and I love the scene where uh, the boy is sitting in the kitchen at the table,
Yeah.
and his mother's getting things ready, and his father's doing something, and then he asks them, why do they always yell "Glory to God" before they blow themselves up?
Yeah.
And to see the different reactions between the mother and the father, but then have the father sit down to try to explain to his son, because his son looks at the world as everyone's nice.
Yeah.
And so he's not understanding why people do these things. But when his father was him, explaining to him in a way what it means, I love the fact that you had the character write in his journal, and he wrote God equals love. And when I saw that, I went, he picked up something completely different than what his father just told him,
Yeah. Yeah.
which which I thought was beautiful.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think for him, it really, for Michael, it really clicked, because he has this particular view of the world. Like you said, he is a very loving person, and he believes the best of everyone, it seems. And so when he hears the idea that we're talking about God, but when he hears the idea that God is love, he's just like, well, that makes total sense. And for him, that's one of the details there, was that he writes it in the margin of his maths exercise book, and he writes God equals love as if it was alongside a bunch of other equations on that page. For him, it's as clear as that. Just God equals love. It's like one equals one. It's just it's obvious to him, and I love that. And for me, that reflects something that I feel. Part of that character is totally me. I am this stupid boy who still believes in love, that actually love is, and it sounds so cheesy and it can sound so fluffy, but love is an incredibly powerful thing. And that's part of what I wanted to show in this, is it's not this fluffy idea. It's actually got real power to it. It's a strong concept, not a fluffy weak one.
Yeah, and I mean, and I love the way that you open the film.
Mm.
Ed, it for probably about a minute or so, there's no dialogue, but you see Michael playing with his homemade camera
Yeah.
or viewfinder in a way,
Yes.
and it shows that he's looking at the world through his own lens,
Yes, that's
which
right.
I thought
Yeah.
was a very powerful introduction into the film, because from there it really started to, I mean, my gosh, I mean, I'm surprised that this is not a feature film because it's amazing how you can pack so much meaning into a short film, and
Mm.
you did it brilliantly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was definitely quite a process of. It was a much longer film originally. It was probably about 3 times as long as a script when I first wrote it, and I worked really hard on that script. I got a lot of feedback. I sent it to a bunch of people. I'm really open to try and see what worked for them, what didn't, and I managed to get it from like 35 pages down to, I think we shot with 12 in the end, and so yeah, it was something I think Martin Scorsese said. I watched his masterclass. He's awesome and a real champion of real cinema, and he said one of the things he said is that every frame counts, and everything that you see in the frame and in a scene has to like take that story forward in some way. And I really tried to put that like to the test in this, like every single thing, that I'm not going to have any sort of extra in there. It's got to just each single second of this, every frame of it's got to count and take a story forward. So yeah, we ended up covering a lot of ground in only 15 minutes, but
Well, I
yeah.
mean, there's a moment in the film, and I really don't want to give it away because I believe that it leads to the end. But
Sure.
when his mother is taking Michael to school,
Yes.
and there's a short scene at the entrance of the school,
Yes.
and it didn't dawn on me until I started putting two and two together. I went, oh, so
Yeah.
Michael's action towards that teacher
Yeah.
leads to something. And I
Yes.
don't want to give it away because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a film that if we sat here and explained it and dissected it, we would give it away. But you have to
Yes.
see it so you can actually experience it. So I want to be very, very careful. But I want to ask you, Phil, because it
Yeah.
still boggles my mind, and because you studied theology,
Yeah.
it boggles my mind that there are hate groups out there that feel using God as a way to justify their evil behavior.
Yeah.
And you portrayed that element in this film. Did you research white supremacy groups for this film?
Yeah, I did to some extent. It's a short film, so I didn't go too deep on things. But what I found, one thing that I did find, that as I crafted this character that really blew me away, was I spoke to someone who works in the legal side of national security here in England, and part of their job is to track potential terrorist cells. And when you say terrorist cell, I don't know what images come to most people's heads, but we've been given a certain stereotype. Let's put it that way. And what was really interesting to me, when I spoke to her, is said, do you think, is this plausible that we could have a white supremacist terrorist like this in England? She said, you know what? Out of the number of cells that we are tracking in the UK, there are more white nationalist extremist cells than there are of other backgrounds. And that was, for me, I was like, that's not what we're told. So it was shocking to me. But I also thought that I had thought that it must, I thought in that direction, that it was plausible and that this could be happening. But to actually have that confirmed by someone who actually really knows was mind blowing. So yeah, and then yeah, a lot of the rest of it came from, again, my own experience of religion and seeing people using religion to manipulate people and to fulfill their own agendas. Thankfully, not to anywhere near as extreme a level, but I have seen that through my own experience as well.
You know, and I'm glad after watching the film and pondering on it for a while, I was really glad that the villain was not Muslim or Middle Eastern, because
Yes.
it wouldn't have the same effect. And then the film would have just fell into a stereotype that the
Yeah.
media creates for the most part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
by not going that route, your film is much more powerful. It's much more believable. And I think it engages the audience, all audiences. I think it engages them more to actually watch and see what actually transpires in this film.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was my hope, and I think I was very aware of, obviously, this film. The first idea for it came to me after the 2005 terrorist attacks in London, and so I was very aware. Then after that, we saw lots of films and lots of TV where there was a Muslim bomber, because that's what we had experienced on that day: Muslim Islamist extremists, and it'd be too easy to just roll out that same trope again. And actually, the problem with that is that then people just go, oh well, we know all about those, so they just pigeonhole it straight away. I know exactly, so you don't need to tell me any more about. And the whole point is like, no, but the whole point was we need to understand why a human being would do this, not why a Muslim or Islamist extremist or a white supremacist, but it's actually trying to get to the human being. How does a human being, because that's what they are, how do they get to that point? That's an incredibly sad story, but we need to get our heads around it as a society if we're going to be able to help avoid those things from ever happening.
Now, did you play with different character developments when writing the story?
Yes, I did. Yeah, yeah. There were a few different ways of coming at it, and actually, the character of Michael in the early drafts. I mean, I must have done about 20-25 drafts of this story, really trying to find a way to do it justice. Really. But the first couple of drafts, there was a little girl actually in there, and actually, some of what Michael sort of fulfills in his role was done by two different characters, a little girl and I forget who else. So yeah, it's interesting how you sort of, again, just trying to find the best way into telling the story in the most succinct way as possible. You slowly sort of chisel it down to what's going to work, and
Well,
yeah, he ended up embodying a few things all in one.
he did. I'm gonna ask you that here in a second, but I'm just gonna call Steven the
Yeah,
villain. Okay.
yeah,
Um, and you did this correctly. And I don't want to give the scene away, but you really brought him down for for the audience to focus on the human being.
mm,
There's a moment in the film, it's the most powerful moment. We focus on him as a human being. We don't focus on him as a white supremacist, a Christian that's gone haywire. We
mm,
just focus on him because then it has to be his acting, because he
mm,
brings that character forth
mm.
with such power and
Yeah,
with such believability that you're only focusing on him. uh you're and actually you cause the audience to actually start to worry about him.
yeah.
And that is just a power. I mean, what was casting like for your
Uh,
film?
Yeah, we're so. I mean, that's Sean Mason, the actor there who played Stephen. He's incredible, and he's such a he's such a good, kind, sensitive soul, and I think that's why he brought such reality to this character. He really wanted to understand who that man is, just like I was trying to say, like, how does a human being get to this point? And he really did that. He would call up, and we had sort of 2 or 3 hour phone call the day before shooting, where he was just asking me every question. It was just like, this is so amazing that he's giving it this much care. It's a short film, and he's done films like feature films. He's done TV. So, yeah, we were very lucky in the casting. We had some help from a casting assistant. As being a short film, we couldn't get a full casting director, but we had casting assistant put together some lists from different, from the agencies. And then Gabby, our producer, Gabby Oliver, who's amazing, did a lot of the approaching and talking, and we got down to a short list. And yeah, I mean, once we saw, I had different ideas about who would play Stephen, what they might look like. But once I saw Sean's tape, it just totally stood out. And the same with Joshua, who plays Michael. He's just an astounding actor, and he brought a level of nuance and just the tiny little details that you just pray you might get in a short film.
Well, did Joshua, all right, Joshua Griffin plays
Yeah,
Michael.
yeah.
Did he create that character or is he
Yeah.
neurodivergent?
So, both. He is neurodivergent himself. But not very far along the scale. So he has ADD, and he's also dyspraxic, which is kind of like a struggle with sort of space and movement in some ways. So he is neurodivergent. He has a cousin who is autistic, fully autistic. So he spent a lot of time with his cousin, very close with him. So I think he was able to he brought all of that to the part. So and again, like I said, it's just those little looks and the little his mannerisms more than anything else that just was like, wow, no one else is doing that in their self tapes. And yeah, that's what really
Well,
hooked me.
what was it like directing him?
Oh, it was a total joy. I mean, he really, when you meet him in person, he's a very articulate, he's a really lovely young man, and he's a bit older than the character. And in fact, the character was, until we cast him, the character was going to be 14, but we thought, well, we can't get away with that, so we made him 16, because I think Joshua was nearly 20 or around 20 at the time. But yeah, he's amazing, and again, just really really professional. It's only his third short film, or I think, and so he's one to watch. He's going to go really far, that actor. So yeah, keep an eye out for his name.
Absolutely. Now, I love the way Derek Elroy portrayed the father.
Oh,
Very
good.
patient and wise in his approach of teaching his son Michael.
Yeah.
Why was that element important in the storyline where, the mother seems a little bit frazzled?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that for me was really important to have these sort of almost two. Your parents become voices in your ear, don't they? Two voices at the shoulder of Michael. That one who this loving father who's actually believes in him, believes that maybe what his neurodivergence is, rather than a problem, is actually a gift. And what is that gift got to bring to the world? And he kind of is curious to see what it can do. And then on the other hand, there's his mother, Polly, who's concerned for her son, which any mother would be, and he's getting bullied at school, and we need to do something, and surely, like, we need to talk to the teachers, should be doing something about it, and he should be standing up for himself. We can't just let them get away with it. So I think that was really important to have that sense of like, and it helps create the question around Michael of like, it is what it is. Does he have a gift, and how can he use that gift in the world? And what yeah, how do we see him, and how do we see that gift in the world? So yeah, I think that was a really important part of it. And Derek Elroy, he's had so much praise for this part, which is so lovely. He was so chuffed, as we say in England, to be involved, and to get to play this kind of father. He said for him was just such a complete joy.
Well, where did you come up with the idea of the cardboard camera?
Well, that's a good one. I think it was actually, it's a friend of mine who is an artist. He's called Graham Little. He's an extremely good artist, and he's collected by people around the world. He actually, we were talking about it, and he was saying, perhaps they're doing, this character's doing something kind of, and we talked about what they could be playing with or whatever. And I think it was him who suggested this camera obscura. And for me, I was like, oh, there's something about that, because for me, it spoke to me as a person, because I love playing with cameras, and I love looking at the world through a lens and trying to understand it. And I can think that's the role of films, is doing that. So it captured some of that, but it also was what's amazing about a camera obscura is when you make one, it's just cardboard and a bit of like transparent like film at the back, and there's no mechanism, there's no sort of electronics, but you get this image on this little screen at the back of this cardboard box, and it's upside down. And again, that was something for me. It was like, this is such a perfect image to play with, because he's looking at the world and he sees it through this box, and it's upside down, and it's like he can't figure out why is it upside down. And I that just felt like the right tone to set.
It was the perfect segue to start the film, because you have the cardboard camera view, then
Yeah.
you have Michael's view of the world, then you have Steven's view of the world, which is extremely narrow, which is funny, because you have the cardboard camera, which is technically a pinhole.
Yes.
Michael's view is very wide, but Steven's is very narrow.
Yes.
So was that on purpose?
Do you know what? I think, no, I can't say that was 100% on purpose. But now that you said that's a good angle. I like that. Yeah, definitely. I think, and definitely the part of the narrowness of the camera obscura, the fact that it's looking at the world through a pinhole. There was something about that for both characters that felt really important. And yeah, I think it's part of the question of the film, like who has the more limited view of the world. And I think often with neurodivergence, the tendency has been historically to sort of look at people who are neurodivergent and think, oh, poor them or something. And it's like, actually, no, we're starting to recognize neurodivergence is just a different way of seeing and understanding the world, and actually can be incredibly powerful. And so it's but I like that you're drawing more from it. It's that's what I loved about this film. I'm still finding layers to it now.
I'm thinking that your next short film may be called Pinhole. It's a great title.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
right. I'll note that down.
Well, you filmed this in Brixton, South London. Why did you choose that particular marketplace?
Well, that was a couple of things, really. My production company, Authentive, is based in Brixton. So we wanted to work locally. We wanted to work with local people. We wanted to give opportunities to local talent in the making of the film. But also that environment, originally I'd thought of this idea on a tube, on an underground train in London. And we looked at whether we could film one of those, and they were like, well, the last people that did that were James Bond. So, what kind of budget have you got? So that ruled that out. So then I was looking for something that would provide a similar kind of sense of being enclosed, but also public. And then didn't take me long at all, because I used to walk through that market every day to get to where I had my desk. I was like, hang on a second, this would be perfect. And it turned out the more we again went with it, the more perfect it appeared to be, because it turned out that it's privately owned, so we didn't have to worry about we didn't have to worry about sort of police being on the scene to stop the general public. We could just cordon off this private area, this private property, and fill it with extras. And it just worked so well for us. And it also meant that we could, the people that catered for the shoot were the burger. You see it in the last scene. It's called Ooey Burger, and they're a vegan burger joint right in the middle of the village. And they got to cater for the shoot. That was the deal that we did. And they had, I don't know, 60, 70 people to cater for that day, and some guaranteed business. So that was it just made it all such a pleasure, because I'd met a lot of the people that run that different stalls in that market. So to be able to kind of give back to it so sort of immediately in that way, as part of telling an important, we felt, an important story. That was a really nice touch for
Well,
us.
yeah, because what I liked about the location is that it was narrow enough
Yeah.
for the audience to focus on the characters and not have
Yes.
their eyes span the
Yes.
background. Because
100%.
and so your attention is focused on the characters.
Yeah.
You're focused on, there's three main characters in that scene. I don't want to give anything away because this is a film where you cannot give a spoiler alert. People, you've got to see this film. So,
Yeah.
but Phil, how long did it take you to film the short film?
This took us 4 days in total. Yeah. So.
Okay, that seems about on average from what I've been hearing. And what has been the audience's reaction to it?
Oh, it's been amazing. That's been the thing that's really moved me throughout. It's been on the festival circuit now for a year, and um, it's been incredible. That one of the main awards we keep winning have been the audience awards, and just seeing. I've been trying to get to as many of these festivals as possible. It's the first festival circuit I've been able to go to. The previous one was during lockdown, so that that didn't work out. So being there and meeting people after watching this film has been such a privilege, because people, I had one person crying for nearly an hour after watching it, and sat with her and talked about it. And you realize, actually, this is bigger than this film came to me. It was something that I felt I had to make. I can't, I feel like it wanted to make itself through me, and so to see it then touching someone in that kind of way, and seeing how important it was to her, and it has been to so many other audience members, that's been such a privilege. And you realize that this is the importance of making art. You put it out there, you let it come through you, and then it does something in the world. And this film's just gone crazy. It's just a whole life of its own that I could never have predicted. Now the Oscars, BAFTAs on the horizon. It's just that's and for me, that's all about trying to get as many people to see it as possible. I just would love as many people to see this, because I really believe in what it has to say.
I mean, for you, how does it feel to be Oscar qualified? And most
Well, that's
likely,
yeah.
I'm predicting BAFTA too.
Uh, well, we are like on the we're approved for BAFTAs as well, which is great. And but yeah, I mean, Oscar qualified. I don't know. Once you think, you're in the same category as like Wes Anderson with a short film this year, and I think maybe is it Almodovar's got one as well. So these, I've looked up to them for years. So I'm just very happy to be in the conversation, and more than that, I just really, whatever helps get more eyes on this film for me is what again, I feel I'm working for the film. I'm here to like help it get to where it wants to go, and the Oscars, anything to do with the Oscars is going to help it find more people that it can be seen by. So that is, again, a real pleasure and a privilege, and I'm happy to be along for the ride.
I really wish that I was on the Academy's committee to be choosing the 15 short
Yeah.
films that will be shortlisted here coming up. This year, the competition has been stronger than ever. I'd almost hate
Yes.
to be on that committee to make those decisions,
Yes.
but your film is literally one of the most powerfully moving. And I really want the whole world to see it, because the message in that film is so strong, and it's something that we all need to know. And I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want I don't want to spoil it, because it's that kind of film. But for you, you've had success at film festivals. What festivals do you have coming up, and what is next for you?
Well, at the moment we're in Mallorca. I'm not there, but the film is, again. It's sort of touring the world and doing its thing. So it's at the Evolution Mallorca Film Festival, which is a really big one over there. And we're coming back over to America to the Ojai Film Festival in, I think is it Northern California, or it's in California? I've been to Ohio, so I should know exactly where it is, but it's a beautiful place. It's getting around still. It's done I think 65 festivals so far. And it's won 39 awards, which is it's just again just been such an encouragement for us that part of this title for this film is what I felt when I first thought of it, is like, oh, you stupid boy, this will never work. So the idea that does seem to be working, and in that many places, it means a lot to me. And then, yeah, what's next? I have another short film that is ready to go, and that's an exciting collaboration as a result of the people I've met on this festival circuit. So, a producer in LA, a dancer from Cleveland who was at the Juilliard School in New York, and we're looking at shooting that in Cleveland and in South Africa. So that's an exciting thing. We're still getting the full money together. So anyone out there who wants to jump on board, let us know. And I'm writing 2 features as well. So that's really what I want to. I'm hoping that, come the Oscars, I will have got one of those finished. That's my aim, so that I can just get straight onto that after all of this wonderful, train ride is over, and it's time to move on. So yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll see you part of the Oscar festivities. Ladies and gentlemen, the short film The Stupid Boy is pure gold. I mean, the storytelling is superb. It will literally leave you with a lasting impression on all who will have the opportunity to see this film. I mean, it's powerful, it's moving, it's riveting in the most unique of ways. And Phil, I want to thank you so much for sharing your film with us today. I've been looking forward to talking to you. Once I saw the film, I was blown away.
Oh, thank you so much, Ward. I really, really appreciate that. It means so much. And it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, this is an example of, like, you are on the other side of the world, here I am, and yet we found something that connects us and that we both feel something about. And that's the magic of filmmaking. That's the magic of art. So it's such an honor and a privilege to be in it.
You always have an open door to my show, and when you get the 2 features done in the next short film, you got to come back, because I can't wait to see those bodies of work as well, and to discuss that with you. Phil, I mean, much success to you, and we'll all be waiting to see who's going to be shortlisted. And if I'm going to be a little bit biased, I expect to see The Stupid Boy in part of that top 15.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, we'll see. And I'm just so grateful to be in the mix.
You're definitely there. And ladies and gentlemen, you can watch the full interview with myself and Phil Dunn on our various online platforms and on my television show, The Ward Bond Show. And please subscribe to our new online show, Bond on Cinema, the perfect place for film lovers to get in-depth interviews with top film directors, producers and screenwriters, even actors, and so much more. So if you love the movies, you'll love Bond on Cinema. And as for me, I want to thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.